Berlin is a graveyard of giants. It is 2025, but time means little here. The concrete bones of the Reichstag claw at a bruised sky. I walk these streets as a ghost bound to history, cursed to watch it bleed and repeat. The air is thick with a phantom scent of ash and ozone. This is a story of a nation's soul hollowed out and replaced by something ancient and hungry. The symbols they painted were not just signs, they were runes, locks on the doors of compassion. And I wait with it, cursed to see the pattern. The echo endures. The first notes of the symphony were played on broken things: treaties, pride, men. Germany after the Great War was a wound that refused to heal. The air tasted of coal dust and desperation. Weimar Berlin danced on the edge of a cliff, laughter brittle, hunger always near. But you cannot outrun a shadow, especially one already inside you. Then came the voice, not a man's, but an echo from a cold, dark place. It slithered from radios and smoky halls, promising order, strength, and a scapegoat. Men straightened their backs, eyes filling with a chilling light. They were not hearing politics. They were hearing a dark prayer. The ritual began. Symbols appeared overnight, the swastika twisted into a sigil of dread. Brown-shirted acolytes marched in torchlit parades, casting a spell of unity through exclusion. They drew a circle. Everyone outside it was marked for sacrifice. The world watched, mistaking damnation for politics. Then came the night of broken glass. Not a riot, but a sacrament. Shattering windows became a hymn, burning synagogues incense for a new, terrible God. I watched the transformation complete, the wound of a nation now infected. Ordinary men became instruments, the curse manifest. The world had changed. A door had opened. Something ancient had stepped through. The fever had taken hold. The hymn of broken glass echoed in every heart. The ritual was no longer hidden. The darkness was now in plain sight. The spell was cast. The world would never be the same. The 1930s descended like a slow suffocation. The vibrant chaos of Weimar replaced by rigid, terrifying order. Straight lines of marching soldiers, perfect angles of banners, architecture of fear. I moved through these years under constant pressure, as if the sky itself pressed down. Fear became the new atmosphere in lowered eyes and silences when certain names were spoken. People vanished quietly. One day a neighbour, the next an empty apartment sealed with a stamp. No one asked questions. To ask was to disappear. Silence isolated everyone, turning communities into collections of frightened individuals. The nation was being hollowed out from the inside. The curse did not just kill, it erased, rewriting reality by removing its inconvenient parts. Beneath the surface, the occult hummed, men in dark uniforms seeking legitimacy in myth. They were grave robbers of history, obsessed with relics, believing they could control the darkness. Their obsession with purity was a lie. They were drawn to the most profane artifacts. The world prepared for the Olympics, painting over rot with bright colours and cheering crowds. But I saw the truth beneath the performance. Athletes competing under symbols that promised death. The stadiums were temples, the games a distraction. While the world applauded, the machinery of the abyss was perfected in hidden places. The silence deepened. It was the intake of breath before a scream. The geometry of silence was complete. The world stood on the edge. The scream was coming. The scream came in September 1939, the sound of Stuka dive bombers over Poland. They called it Blitzkrieg, lightning war, but it was a harvest. Tanks rolled across borders, not just machines, but beasts animated by the curse. The earth groaned. The ritual escalated. Every shell, every burning city thinned the veil between worlds. Battlefields became altars, fear and agony feeding the entity ruling Germany. Invaders fought with feverish purpose, possessed by something not their own. The world was remade into a charnel house. France fell not just from military pressure, but from a psychic blow. The speed of conquest felt unnatural, as if the curse cleared their path. In Paris, the swastika was raised, a black spider at the heart of a web. The shadow in Berlin consumed Europe, darkness spreading like a stain. Britain watched, an island fortress against the tide. The Battle of Britain was a duel in the clouds, a battle of wills. Every fallen plane was a prayer, one to freedom, one to chains. The sky over London filled with fire and ghosts. The requiem of Blitzkrieg reached its crescendo. The world held its breath. The symphony of destruction played on. The abyss waited for an answer. The darkness was not yet done. The world teetered on the edge. The tide began to turn, not just in factories, but in the metaphysical balance. The horror of the curse awakened an equal and opposite force, human will. In Stalingrad, the myth of the invincible army shattered against ice and iron resolve. The Russian winter was more than weather. It was the world rejecting the infection. On D-Day, June 6, 1944, the invasion was an exorcism. Soldiers charged into gunfire, fighting not just men, but the spectre behind them. Their courage tore at the fabric of the shadow world. The curse, which fed on fear, now faced hope. The advance across France was a slow cleansing. Every liberated town was a victory against darkness. Songs of freedom drowned out the whispers of the abyss. But as the Allies pushed deeper, the true horror was revealed, behind barbed wire. The concentration camps, Auschwitz, Dachau, Bergen-Belsen. Not just prisons, but factories of death, epicenters of supernatural infection. The soldiers who liberated them saw things that broke their minds. The skeletal survivors, the piles of bodies, the smell of murder. This was the face of the entity they fought, a void seeking to unmake creation. The curse was broken, but its cost was beyond comprehension. The world was forever changed. The shadow retreated, but its mark remained. The spirit endured. The camps were the moment the world looked into the abyss, and the abyss stared back. The ritual's true goal was the negation of humanity, to reduce people to numbers, to ash. The geometry of hell was made manifest: barracks, records, gas chambers. I walked through Auschwitz, the air thick with ghosts. The silence was a vacuum left by stolen lives. Here the shadow world had consumed the physical. The guards were priests of a nihilistic faith. The survivors were pilgrims from the deepest circle of hell. The world saw images, but could not feel the weight. The silence louder than any scream. The camps were a warning, proof of what happens when hatred is followed to its end. The abyss had been seen, and it could not be unseen. The final act played out in a concrete tomb beneath a dying city. Berlin was a hellscape above. Below, the curse consumed itself. The bunker was a microcosm of madness, a sealed world of sycophants and ghosts. The shadow that had ruled Europe now shrank, retreating into this final space. He was never seen clearly, even at the end. A tremor in the air, a set of frantic orders. The last congregation watched their god of power become a black hole. The ritual had to end with fire. Burning bodies, destroying records, a final sacrament. The sound of a single gunshot was not just a death, but a spell breaking. The host body destroyed, the ancient entity was suddenly without anchor. A psychic shockwave swept the ruins. The compulsion lifted. The fever broke. Soldiers saw not demons, but other frightened men. The world took a breath. The evil did not die. It became a vapor, seeping into memory. The storm was over. The climate remained. The war ended. Silence fell. Survivors emerged, rebuilt, and promised never again. but the entity dissolved, not died, a dormant seed in the world's heart. The chill of the faceless shadow, the ritual, lingers. The curse was never about one nation. It is a weakness in the human spirit. The shadow lingers, a whisper on the wind, always waiting. The world must remember. The echo endures.